and welcome to Inside Influence, the show where we talk with B2B marketing insiders about what's working and what's not inside the world of B2B influencer marketing. I'm Lee Odden, CEO and co-founder of TopRank Marketing, and with me today I have a very special guest, award-winning B2B marketer Jen Holtvluwer, Chief Marketing Officer at Spirion. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, Lee. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to see you. So tell me, how did you in your career first start working with influencers?
You know, it's funny you asked that question because I was thinking about that a few weeks ago as I was talking about influencer marketing. And gosh, we started using influencer marketing tactics way back when I was at Numara Software, before influencer marketing was really a thing. So we knew that as a challenger brand, and if you look at my past experiences, the majority of the brands that I market are challenger brands. And what we did way back when, before BMC acquired us at Numara, was we partnered with folks that had impact in our verticals that we knew we had to target to win deals in. And so we looked at associations and did lots of partnerships with their thought leaderships, which were really industry influencers. So it started way back when webinars started to become a thing, right? And panelists with experts that had quite a bit of knowledge on a particular area. You partner with them and you associate your brand with theirs. And that's really the beauty of influencer marketing. And that's where the success follows.
A lot of influencer marketing is really about the marketing of demand gen, thought leadership, awareness, top of funnel sort of stuff. But you have experience being responsible for sales in your career. Do you feel like, influencers can play a role, or influence plays a role in, sales initiatives?
Oh, 100%. I was just on our quarterly board meeting yesterday, and it came up how much we're getting mentions by customers, which are certainly influencers.
Yes.
How much we're getting mentioned by journalists, editors, media, which are all influencers as well. And one of our board members said, how are you turning that into opportunities or SQLs? And I said, well, they don't always bring opportunities direct, but boy, we take those mentions and we apply them in our demand generation and our prospecting efforts, and they certainly influence and can accelerate to that opportunity stage. So that's where we use it, and our sales team uses it as well, because when people see your brand as being mentioned by an influencer, that gives them that double take, right?
Mm-hmm.
That validates you more in market. So it certainly influences and can accelerate lead to opportunity efforts for sure.
That's smart. That's so smart. In our research that we published about a month ago, the 2020 State of B2B Influencer Marketing Report, you, of course, were named as one of 20 top influencer marketing professionals to follow. And I'm curious what you feel that it takes to be at the top of your game when it comes to influencer marketing for a B2B company.
Yeah, it's such a good question. For me, I think I learned this from the wonderful Jill Raleigh, but it's not about, who you should target, but it's who you should best serve. And what we found is once you understand who your audience is, that's really the key, because you need to have the right audience that you can align with, the right influencers that will look to those people that you're partnering with to build credibility for your brand. So it's all about truly going back to your ICP work, right? Your ideal customer profile, then understanding who you can form those relationships and partnerships with in the influencer space that will help you, raise the awareness, raise the demand, against that ICP market that you can best serve.
It's almost like influencers are an accelerant, to the fire of marketing, something to warm the market, to speed that sales cycle, boost confidence and trust and all those sorts of things that just kind of give you that edge maybe for consideration or sales conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm working on my third influencer marketing program right now, and I'm we're dealing with CISOs, so Chief Information Security Officers. And there was a report that 10 Inc. put out. They're an event planning organization that targets CISOs, that tell us, that particular persona or title, they are the influencers, right? They are the ones that pick up the phone and call one another for the referrals to talk about what's working and what isn't, in the InfoSec space. So really understanding, influencers come in all different sizes, shapes, packages, whatever you want to call it. It's not always someone that has the largest social network that's
Right.
the influencer. In our case, it's the actual personas and titles, because they're such a tight knit. So we're relying on our customers to do some influencer marketing with. So it really, you have to understand your market and understand who are those true influencers in that space.
Our research, speaking of research, shows that 60% of marketers who do not implement ongoing influencer programs report that they don't have the right skills or knowledge to execute in-house. Now, while you were at Sherwell Software and Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise that I'm aware of, you were behind award-winning influencer marketing programs at both companies. What would you say is your secret to that kind of success?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I think I've always leveraged influencers to help elevate the challenger brands that I've been tasked to take to market. At Sherwell and at Alcatel, I've always tell my team, don't try to be an expert at everything, right? Do something and do something very good, because you can always bring in more resources to help you in areas that you may not have mastered or may never master. And, the secret to what we did at Sherwell and at Alcatel was hiring that coach, right? Hiring that organization to partner with that can really help us understand, people misconstrue influencers all the time. They really, just like I said earlier, it's not always about the number of followers that someone has, but it's really, who is your market resonating with, and who will they listen to, right? And that's who you should be aligning your brand with. And that's what we did, right? We hired, folks over at TopRank, right, of course, to come in and help us understand. We want to do a state of the industry, right? And we want to make sure that it's not just from a vendor perspective. We want it from the market perspective. We have an idea on who those are, but there were so many more influencers that we didn't even think about, by having a fresh set of eyes and someone that actually lives and breathes this day in and day out, do this for us. So that's one thing. There's one other thing I want to point out, because I come up with at least one or two just off the wall wacky ideas with every organization I lead. And I like to make sure that I have partners that will check me when I need to be checked, but then also go with me right down this journey. And at Alcatel-Lucent, people knew Alcatel. It was a French brand, but in the US, people kind of knew Lucent. So I still considered Alcatel-Lucent a challenger brand. Coming up with the whole awards theme, that no one was recognizing these folks, in the hardware space, was almost unheard of. But, finding a partner that would help me vet out this idea, where we had influencers come in as judges, it led to 7-figure pipeline for us. So we not only used it to grow our brand, but you've got to have that partner that we have in, obviously TopRank has been very, very a valuable partner to us to help us weed out the good from the bad. And hey, when it delivers brand awareness and moves that needle, in addition to bringing in demand, it's a home run, right? And that awards that the Vanguard Awards that we did was certainly a home run. And it's all about having the right coach and the right team along your side as you roll it out.
Well, I have to say, your leadership and your vision obviously were, the DNA for everything that happened in those programs, for sure. And that I can't say how enjoyable it is to work with someone on the brand side that has that, because sometimes it's a lot about checking off boxes and fulfilling requirements and, that sort of thing, as opposed to making a difference with interesting ideas and like in your case, you put yourself in that position of working with challenger brands. And so you've got to accomplish, or you've got to approach solving marketing problems and sales generation problems for a challenger brand a little bit differently than someone who's well established and, the number one dominant player. So it makes it exciting, I think. And of course, winning awards is obviously not the only, or maybe even the first or second or third objective for an influencer program. But the reason you won awards, of course, is because of those performance numbers, like the 7-figure pipeline, or one campaign that was attributed to 20% of sales pipeline for the entire year. So what I'm looking for, there's secrets to success, and then there's the importance of knowing your audience. But are there lessons learned, like, things that you would make sure you do again? Is there anything you would make sure you would do again? Anything you would make sure you wouldn't do again in terms of an influencer program?
Yeah. Yep. I think one thing that I would do, differently, and have done differently, is make sure that the influencers that you align with, the expectations of what you're wanting to gain from them is very clearly outlined. Right? We've had some influencers that said, yes, we'll sign up, we'll participate. And then when it came, time to roll out, the actual program, we didn't see as much participation as we would have liked. So I think the communication up front with the influencers of what you're expecting, to gain from them is very important. And they appreciate that too, right? Because then they know fully what they're signing up for and what they can and can't do. So I think that's a big lesson learned, is to make sure expectations are clearly outlined, so that there aren't any surprises when you get to roll out the program of what you need to accomplish.
Great. So another data point we found in our research in the 2020 State of B2B Influencer Marketing Report is that 84% of marketers say that brand awareness is one of their top measurable benefits for working with influencers. And that's followed by 69% saying that lead generation is a top benefit. So I have a feeling we know the answer to this question based on what we've talked about already, but do you think it's reasonable to expect both from the same campaign or the same effort?
Yeah, absolutely. I started my career out very heavy on the demand generation side. It will always be my go-to passion. But I really am of the firm belief that, if you do branding right, the demand will follow, and it makes the demand, I never like to say easier, but it makes taking your stories to market that much more memorable. So with influencer marketing, it's certainly helping with share of voice, because you're getting more exposure through the influencers that you're partnering with. But it's like I said earlier, it's when done right, your sales team can actually take those actions that you're creating, those sound bites, those nuggets, and build credibility, build value into the business case sooner, which I think we're all finding now. The big struggle with trying to market during a pandemic and a recession, if I bring that up, is you've really got to create value sooner in the funnel, so that people understand, that, hey, if an influencer is endorsing this or sharing this and talking about this, I better take a look at this sooner, right? Because it's probably something that I need to be taking action on too. So there is a nice balance where I do think that the branding that you get out of it can most definitely be used to accelerate the demand side of it, which leads to those opportunities that we're all wanting to get at the end of the day.
You bring up a really good point in terms of marketing during the pandemic or recession. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. Everything from economic to political, social, environmental. A lot of uncertainties on top of the already existing challenges that are natural to B2B marketing, right? Longer sales cycles, bigger considerations, and buying committees and all that. So I'm wondering if you feel like influencers can help optimize, or it's sort of a loaded question, and I apologize for that. But do you feel that working with influencers in a B2B context is as good of an opportunity during times like these as it would be when times are flush?
I would say absolutely yes, because the space that I'm playing in right now, the influencers are definitely our customers and their peers.
Mm.
And we all know that when you're trying to navigate the times that we're in right now, if you don't have trusted relationships built in your customers, or influencers in this case too, playing a dual role, it's very hard for businesses to thrive or even survive, right? So that's one thing that we're doing at Spirion right now is we put added effort around our customer marketing efforts with our install base, because we know they're the influencers. We're taking even more time to engage with them and understand how is this pandemic impacting your business in regards to data security, right, and data protection and data privacy needs. And that's what's helping us, move the ship forward. So definitely, if your influencers are your own customers, which I think in almost every market they should be, there's no better time now than to align even closer with them to keep the business moving, right? That's what we're all trying to do right now, is to keep business moving, and that's certainly one tactic to take.
Sure. So in terms of working with influencers, you're talking as much about the notion of influence, and you're thinking about it strategically, which I think is one of the reasons why you have been so successful, is that you are more strategic than a lot of other folks in your role at different companies. When you think about influence or influencers that you might partner with, what are you looking for? Because you mentioned it's not just about popularity.
Yeah, the one thing that I look for, and the one thing that I've learned too, back to your lessons learned, is you want to make sure the influencers you're aligning with have passion, passion for what they love to do, how they do it, passion for wanting to share and learn and educate folks. The most successful influencers that I've aligned with, they have that trait. That's the consistent trait that you see between them. It's someone that wants to help, wants to share the value of what they're really hanging their career on, right? It's what they talk about, it's what they tweet about, it's what they blog about, it's what they speak about at industry events. They've got to have that passion. And I've aligned with some influencers that have the large networks, but what they miss is, when you want to leverage them, when you're a challenger brand, is that passion to be that raving, not so much endorser, but fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make them understand what you do, get their buy-in, and that you just can't beat someone that has passion, and that's an influencer in your space. So definitely passion is something that I look for.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So obviously, not everything is easy or all roses when it comes to working with influencers. I'm wondering, what are some of the top challenges that you've experienced, and if there's anything you would recommend to others not to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've, coming from bigger brands like BMC, budget wasn't always an issue or a concern, but, smaller brands, when you're marketing, sometimes, the influencers are wanting, some type of stipend, right? Or paid. And I think you've got to be able to, if you can't afford to pay an influencer, which honestly, I've never paid an influencer, anything. I've always found the right people that want to do it and are champions for our cause. So I think that's the key, is some people think, oh, influencers, I'm going to have to cough up some money. And I guess it depends on the situation, but the champions for your cause is what you need to be finding in these influencers, and make sure that, they're aligned with what your product can do for the people that they're influencing in market. I think that's really important to understand and look for.
Okay. So Spirion is in the business of data security and privacy. I guess you've kind of talked about this a little bit, because you view your customers as influencers. I guess maybe I'm thinking of another question that's related to this, maybe. So there are some companies who might think, or executives who might think, oh, there's no influencers in data privacy and security or something like that. So what role might an influencer play in your industry? Or what would you say to an executive who's like, oh, there's no influencers in my industry, where either, or for whatever reason they give?
Yeah. Yep. I think that there's influencers in every industry. There's buyer influencers, there's market influencers, and it's up to us as marketers and sellers to find out who those influencers are. For us in, data privacy, data security, it definitely is, the chief information security officers, like I mentioned before. So for us, what we've done is we have our own podcast where we invite customers to come on, and it's not where we're talking about our brand, but we're talking about impactful things that are happening. The Blackbaud data breach is very top of mind for the CISO community right now. So by inviting influencers in to participate with you, that's very important to do in times like today. And I think most executives that I work with, maybe it's because I'm so convincing and have a pretty good portfolio of examples to share, they understand that you've got to align yourselves with people that are going to, again, be that champion for your cause. And if you can ever tie it back to data, which is one thing I think my team has done very well, someone once taught me, the data don't lie, right? This works, right? This has moved your share of voice X percentage point. This has brought in X number of pipeline resulting in X revenue. And there's studies out there, that show that. So I think, it doesn't take much to convince an executive when you have published data to back up your idea and your approach to influencer marketing.
Thank you, because there is a growing body of evidence, third-party credibility, third-party research studies like ours. We had case studies. Obviously, we have case studies for work we've done with you as well, award-winning work. But and there's data we can look at inside to identify whether there are individuals creating evidence of thought leadership and advocacy around a topic that's important to your customers. We can use data and tools to surface those sorts of things, as opposed to people in the C-suite or in marketing departments just thinking off the top of their head, well, because of my experience, I don't feel like there's anyone for us to work with. And that's just something that happens. It's just the way it is. And like you say, I love that the data don't lie.
Yeah,
That's
well,
great.
and I think a lot of companies too forget that they have some of the biggest influencers right within their own company. So, employee advocacy programs can easily turn into, an influencer spin-off of a program, right? We've recently launched I think it was 6 months ago, an employee advocacy platform where we've got our own employees who some have been in this space for 10 plus years, sharing content and sharing thoughts. And I think it's something that, yes, you don't always have to look outside for influencers. You could have your own customers, as we've talked about a lot here, but also your employees can be very powerful influencers for you. I'm very fortunate to have a data privacy attorney on my team who is very well known in this space, and we put him out there all the time, and he fills a virtual room these days. So I think that you can get creative with your influencers, and don't ever neglect your own employees, or your partners. If you sell through a partner business model, there's influencers there as well.
That's a great point. That's a really good point, because we've seen a significant increase by B2B companies in investing in building executive influence, building the influence of their executives to facilitate that very thing on top of employee advocacy efforts.
Yep, 100%.
You've had a really successful career. It's been wonderful to see you move, from BMC to Sherwell, Alcatel, and now you are CMO at Spirion. And I'm wondering, what career advice can you share with other aspiring CMOs?
Yeah, it's a good question. I get asked it often. When I look back, at my career, and I've had some highs and I've obviously had lows like we all do, but what's been the similar thing, if I can call it that, of what I've always had is I've always sought a champion within the organization that's at that director level or above that I've aligned myself with. And that is not something that you can just do. You've got to earn that trust, right? So you've got to put in the time to show that, you're someone that they do want to put some time into, to mentor, coach, advance. And I think it's really important that people seek out who is that person that's going to be a champion for me as I want to advance and grow my career. And I've had David Weiss, I've had Matt Dirks, I've had Carolyn Tegg, I've had Sandra Booth. I've had so many that I still keep in touch with today that have been that champion for my cause. So I think it's really important to not try to do it alone, but make sure you put in the time and that your time is noticed and that you're marketing yourself to that right champion in the business. And then they'll stay with you and refer you as other opportunities come up. And that's really been my success. And that's what I like to pass along to people when I get asked that question.
Fantastic. That's great advice. Great advice. So thinking about the future, what do you think might be different in 2021 when it comes to influencer marketing or even B2B marketing? Post-pandemic, maybe.
Yeah, I got asked this question on my board meeting yesterday too. What's 2021 going to look like? And I think that we've proven that business can be conducted in a virtual manner. And I really believe the success that we've seen at building pipeline at Spirion is by understanding our audience that much more. We've hired a data scientist that we've contracted with to help us dig into that data more. And, as we do, we're finding that those partnerships with third-party associations that are full of influencers is what we'll continue to do. And that's where we've seen success. So I really think it goes back to who needs what you have, truly understanding that, and then finding the partnerships in vendors. A couple of ours are EduCause because we're in higher ed. Information Security Media Group is another one that can get you to your audience quicker and has those influencers in the shapes of editors. What else would I say? Editors and bloggers, right? That are
Journalist, analyst.
Exactly, analysts. Thank you. That will help you with your charter and trying to move the needle. So that's what we're going to do. It's not going as wide, I think, as we've traditionally gone with events, but really honing in and really embracing account-based marketing. I know it's been around a while, but it's really putting that into action with those associations that will get us to our audiences quicker and aligning us with them. So.
Fantastic. This has been so insightful, Jen. I love talking with you. I learn new things every time, and I'm sure everyone watching is learning something new today too. They're inspired, no doubt. Where can people learn more about you and about the work you're doing?
Sure. Yep. You're happy to follow me on Twitter. It's just at Jen Holtvluwer is my Twitter handle. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me on our About Us page on Spirion.com too. I think that has my email there as well. So happy to connect and always up for a good virtual chai tea latte conversation.
That's awesome because I love chai tea latte also. All right, great. Well, thanks a lot, Jen, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.